Hi everyone, how's it going? Now I've been noticing that a lot of my gang stalkers like to use green. I know why and they know why. So I'm kitting out my whole shit with green today. Listen, I've even got green socks. So head to toe, I'm in green. The only thing that's not green is my fucking, what I call it there, my jeans. That's the only thing that I'm wearing that's not green, my jeans. Because we're going to tell the truth today and we're going to tell it right. And we are going to do so via the Sonya Massey case. Now, for those who don't know, Sonya Massey was the victim of police brutality. She was fatally shot in the head on July the 6th. She was from Springfield, Illinois. And the guy who shot her was the deputy to the sheriff of that particular town in Springfield. Now, before I proceed with the video, I'm going to read a biblical verse from the book of Micah, chapter 7, verse 8. And it goes like this. Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy. When I fall, I shall arise. When I sit in darkness, the Lord is a light unto me. That one is for Sonya. And that one is for any targeted individual that is a Christian. Now, I myself am not a Christian. And I do not defend the judgmental attitudes of religious people. I do not defend your bigotry. I do not defend your narrow-mindedness. I do not defend willful ignorance. But what I do defend is the right to your faith. And I do believe that whatever your spirituality, it doesn't matter what that spirituality is or what that faith is, that must come first above everything else in your life. So that is why I defend the right for you to have your faith. It is not right that you should be killed or you should be injured or you should be persecuted for what you believe. That is what I believe. And again, I'm a full witch here, okay? We all know. But I defend the right of Christians to have their faith. That's why I read that verse for Sonya, but also for all targeted individuals who are Christians. Because they are persecuting you as well as the rest of us. You deserve to be recognized and you deserve to be seen. You deserve to be acknowledged. And don't you ever forget that. I don't defend bigotry and I don't defend narrow-mindedness, but I defend your right to have your faith. Okay? So that biblical verse was Micah chapter 7, verse 8 for Sonya and for the rest of you who are Christian. Okay? Now, the reason I began this video was because there was a content creator called Dana Dane. It wasn't just her, but basically, long story short, she straight up lied and said that Sonya Massey had assaulted a police officer, even though we all have eyes and we all saw what was going on. We all saw what was going on. And it was that moment when she flat out lied, when Candace Owens flat out lied, when so many people came online and flat out lied about something that we all saw. That is when it really became clear to me that Sonya Massey was a targeted individual. Now, I wasn't actually the first to acknowledge this. The first person to my knowledge that acknowledged that Sonya Massey was a targeted individual was a woman named Ella T. Georgia. She goes by the name of 25_BWB and Ella the Great on Instagram. She was the one who raised the alarm and said that she was a targeted individual. And she said it because she noticed the demeanor of the officers. The officers seemed irritated, she said. And she wasn't the only one who said that. There was a white lady on one of the videos arguing against Dana Dane, arguing against Dana Dane. saying the police officers seem irritated, they seem like they didn't really want to be there, all that shit. And I have to admit, when police officers have visited me, they've also been dismissive and treated me like a criminal when I have reported crimes against me. I should have seen the signs. I really should have seen the signs from the way Sonya Massey was treated. Because how the fuck are you going to be the one calling for help, and yet when the police get there, you are treated like the criminal? But we'll get into that later. It was Ella T. Gorgia, Gorgia, that first said that Sonya Massey is a targeted individual. I had my doubts, but after the next set of events that I'm about to tell you, that's what basically reinforced my belief that Ella was right and that this woman was a targeted individual. So she was the one who brought that up. And before I get into why I believe she was right, let me tell you something about Ella T. Gorgia, right? Ella T. Gorgia is a woman that worked at Lancome, okay? There was the username that I gave you, 25_BWB. It's 25 Black Women in Beauty. And this was inspired by 22 women at Estee Lauder companies who gathered during the summer of 2018 to present a letter to senior management expressing their discontent with the treatment of Black women at the company. And you can see this right here. Okay. That's basically the reason behind her username. So Ella T. Gorgia has been a targeted individual since 2018. It is now 2024. So she's been a targeted individual for 6 years. So, you know, being a targeted individual for longer than that, I really should have seen the signs from the video. But she saw it first and she was like, no, Sonya Massey is definitely a TI. I recognize the signs. And if you look through Ella's story, you will see similar instances that she's gone through. I've gone through the same thing. So I really should have seen it, but for some reason I didn't. Oh well. So she was the first person that I saw saying Sonya Massey is a TI, and you know, I had my doubts. But then I came across my friend on Facebook, one of my TI friends, and she had shown everyone a meme of them saying, quote, hang on, did I write it down? They showed a quote from no less than 2 Facebook accounts. I believe they were bots, saying, quote, Sonya Massey proved there is no power in the name of Jesus. So even as she's dead, people are being overtly disrespectful. Now, I've seen plenty of Black people dying in custody or you know, all the rest of it. But if it gets particularly disrespectful, then that's how you know the person who died is a TI, because they really like to get disrespectful. And there are always random people jumping in trying to argue the point with you. Oh, but you know, is she a whistleblower? Why would she be a TI? Why would she be targeted? So if anybody is disrespectful to the point where they are disrespecting her faith like that, or disrespecting the way she died, TI. I don't care if the people doing that were bots, or if the people doing that were real people who were perps. That is a sure sign that that woman was targeted. So that reinforced my belief that Sonya Massey was targeted. So the first thing was Ella T. Gorgia saying she was a TI. That set my alarm bells ringing. Then it was the bots talking about Sonya Massey proving there's no power in the name of Jesus. That's not even fucking true, by the way. Clearly there's power in the name of Jesus if that police officer got fucking triggered. I'm just saying. Right? And the third thing that sealed the deal for me was when Dana Dane came out and straight lied. Do you understand? That was the nail in the coffin. That was like, nah, Sonya Massey's a TI, because ain't no fucking way you're going to watch live evidence of a body cam, on a body cam of this woman's murder, and say that she committed assault. There's no fucking way you're going to do that unless you're an agent, unless you're a perp, unless you're a deliberate saboteur. There's no way. Absolutely no way. Only TIs get that level of disrespect. Now, luckily, a lot of people have come out and argued against her, argued against Candace Owens, and said, this is ridiculous. How could you even say that? We all saw the video. What the fuck is wrong with you? So they've all come out and they've spoken against her, against Dana and all the rest of it. And they're literally so close. They're so close, but they're just about missing the point. They're even investigating the police officer. Now, this police officer who murdered Sonya Massey, first of all, he had DUIs before law enforcement. Before that, I believe he was dismissed from the US Army over a serious offense. And during his time as a police officer, I believe he was written up. Apparently, he had gotten inappropriate with a couple, one of whom he jailed, right? He jailed the man and arrested the woman. So the woman was arrested but not jailed. The man was jailed. And before that happened, he was inappropriate with the woman. So not only does this asshole have a history of being cruel, he has a history of being cruel and incompetent. So people are out here wondering, is it simply because he's white? Because now people are starting to investigate his tattoos. And some people are putting together that his tattoos are Nordic tattoos for protection. And it's been noted that Viking stuff is usually associated with white supremacy. That's not always the case, but you know, a lot of white supremacists like to use Viking iconography or Nordic iconography mythology, because if you look at Nordic people, the stereotype of Nordic people, blonde, blue-eyed, all the rest of it, right? So that's why they usually feel the connection to Nordic religions and Nordic folklore, paganism, right? So a lot of people kind of put that together, and they assumed from that he might be part of a white supremacist group, and that there are some people who have even brought up that there are gangs within the police. And I'm thinking, you guys are so close. You're so fucking close. Like, you're so fucking close. Like, you don't understand how close you are. But this is the thing, right? They're using the race war to cover up. How do I put this? How do I put this in a way that makes sense? The propaganda of a race war is used how do I put this? It's like they're using a race war to cover up genocide. How do I put this? It is racial genocide, but it's genocide. It's not a war. This is not a race war. This is a race genocide. And the reason I say that is because these criminal gangs within police, within the higher echelons of society, there is a hierarchy. There are strong hierarchies of every kind. There's racial hierarchies, there's gender hierarchies, all the rest of it. And it's usually white males that are at the top. It doesn't matter if it's a criminal organization. It doesn't matter if it's alchemical factions, like alchemical fraternities, alchemical sororities. It's always white supremacists at the top, white people and white supremacists at the top. And then, like, the browner you get, obviously, the lower on the totem pole you are. And this is the same with criminals. This is the same with, any gangs of any kind, right? And quite often they get powerful enough to infiltrate police. And I personally believe that Sonya Massey was not only targeted because she was black, it was because she was the victim of a gang that chose her. It was a gang within the police that chose her. Now, we have something similar in the UK, but in the UK, because the UK is a colony, it's a lot more established in the way that it wields power. Therefore, it's not as obvious that the police are involved in gang stalking. It's not as obvious. Do you understand what I'm saying? But in the US, they're relatively new to having power because they gained it very quickly. They're new to having it. So they don't really know how to manage it. So everything's out in the open for everyone to see. But it is the same pretty much everywhere. There are gangs within police that are kind of beyond the police. They're beyond government, because like government officials, lawmakers, law enforcers, they're all part of these cabals that are actually responsible for gang stalking. And then we've got to get into private security firms or private intelligence firms that are also part of gang stalking as well. So we've got to get into that. There's a whole like circulatory system of connections that keep the blood of corrupt government flowing. Do you understand? It's a whole circulatory system of private intelligence firms, public intelligence, civil intelligence, law enforcement, all of that. And I believe personally that incompetent fuck is part of that circulatory system. And I believe that's why he keeps getting away with it. He's got to have a relative or somebody who is powerful enough to pull enough strings where they can just ignore his many crimes and keep him working as a police officer, as, you know, an infantry soldier, if that's what he was. I don't think he was an infantry soldier. I don't know, actually. But to keep him working and to keep him within civil service in some way, there's got to be somebody high up who is keeping him in there. This is more than just whiteness. This is, it's alchemical warfare. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. This is more than just racial. This is alchemical warfare that Sonya Massey was up against. And she was unlucky enough to be chosen as a target. I don't know why she was chosen as a target. She probably didn't do anything. It was probably somebody who was bored or somebody who elected her at random. But Sonya Massey was definitely a targeted individual. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind now. The way she's been treated, there's just too much disrespect. And there are too many, there's just too many details not being considered for me to think that she's anything other than a TI. Okay? Now, let's get into the details that people missed, because there are details that people missed about Sonya Massey's case, right? The first thing is when they came to Sonya Massey's door on July the 6th, when they came to her door, first off, why did they ask if an SUV with a baseball bat through it was hers? It's in her driveway and it has a baseball bat through it. Apparently it was in her driveway and there was a baseball bat through it. So before you walk up to her house, you don't run the fucking plates. Why didn't you run the plates? You didn't need to ask her. You could have asked her who owned the car. You didn't even have to ask her who owned the car. You didn't have to ask her nothing. If you really wanted to know who that damaged car belonged to, why the fuck didn't you run the license plates? Because if the license plates were gone, you would have noticed something. And you would have said to her, the license plates are gone. Can you identify whose car that is? Why the fuck didn't you run a plate check? That's the first thing. Why the fuck are you asking her that? Did you put the baseball bat through the car? Because why the fuck are you asking her? I believe they put this torture device into her head as well. Let me get to that, baby. Let me get to that. Ozzy Omoluwabi is on. Okay, let me get to that, all right? I'll get to that. So you didn't run a license. So as a police officer, you didn't run a license check. Bullshit. Then you're going to go to her house and ask for her ID. Why the fuck are you asking her for her ID? She called you. She called you. Why are you asking for her ID? That's the second thing. Third thing is, why the fuck were you so irritated? She's calling you the day before saying that somebody broke into her house. Why are you walking up there irritated? What's wrong? What the fuck's wrong? Then you asked to enter her house. What are you entering her house for? What questions are you asking her? In fact, let's run the Guardian's recap of exactly what went on when, with the body cam, what went on, right? Let's run it through, right? So, hang on. 1 second. So, they requested her driving license. Okay. So, what happened was, hang on a second. So, they basically began looking into Massey's home with flashlights. Okay, so basically, so there was, oh my God. One second. All right, so Massey was accused of being paranoid schizophrenic. That alone should have been an alarm bell right there. Okay. And Massey called the police because she thought someone was trying to break into her home. When the police arrived, they began looking into Massey's home with flashlights. A neighbor, Cheryl Evans, told The Guardian. So the police didn't knock on her door like they typically would. They didn't knock on Massey's door like they typically would any other person who called 911, right? And eventually, when Sonya Massey opened the door, that's when they started asking a bunch of bullshit questions like, where's your license at? Sounding irritated. And then they went into her home. There was a pot of boiling water on the stove, and she was ordered to remove it to avoid starting a fire. This is the thing, right? They could have removed it themselves. They could have said, let me remove that for you, because they had heard that she was paranoid schizophrenic. So they could have removed the pot. They could have said, hey, let me remove that for you. Let me go ahead and remove that for you. Don't worry. I got you. Let me go ahead and remove that. They knew she was diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. Why did they not remove the pot? They could have just said, you've got boiling water here. Let me take care of that so that nobody gets hurt. Then back away. Instead, what they did was not only tell her to remove the pot of boiling water, they backed away. Why are they backing away from a situation that they could have easily solved? So basically, they're trying to set this woman up to look like she's violent. That's flag number 2. Red flag number 1, paranoid schizophrenic. Get the fuck out of here. She wasn't paranoid schizophrenic. Second thing is, why the fuck are you backing away as a police officer from a bottle of boiling water? Are you a pussy? What's going on? What's going on? You could have easily removed it. And I'm sorry for using the vaginal canal in a denigrating manner. My apologies. But you understand, you get what I'm saying. You know the person's vulnerable. Why are you backing away and acting like she's going to hurt you? That's the second thing. That's the second red flag. Let's continue this. Where are you going? Where are you going? She asked them. Away from your hot steaming water. Again, this cunt, this fucking police officer is not just cruel. He's incompetent. Away from your boiling water, he answers with a laugh. Before Massey responds, away from the hot steaming water. Oh my God. She said, oh, I'll rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I believe the reason why she brought up, I'll rebuke you in the name of Jesus, was not because she was going to pour the hot water on him. I believe she saw his tattoos. I believe she saw his tattoos. I don't think he covered them up with makeup. Or, because there's no way he would have been wearing long sleeves at that time. She said, I'll rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I don't think that meant she was going to throw the boiling water on him. She wasn't going to do that. If she was going to do that, they knew she wasn't going to do that. And they turned that into an opportunity to paint her as violent. Right? And then Grayson, with his gun drawn, closed the distance between himself and Massey, who was beginning to kneel behind a counter with her hands up. So she already had her hands up. She already had her hands up. Wasn't going to hurt him, wasn't going to do anything. You better fucking not. I swear to God, I'll shoot you right in the fucking face. Her hands were already up. By the time he even finished that sentence, her hands were already up. And Massey can be heard saying, "I'm sorry," as Grayson continues to advance. "I'm sorry," she says again as Grayson fires three shots, striking her with a bullet below the eye that exited from the back of her neck. So this poor woman already had her hands up and said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Already apologized. Ready to cry peace. Still shot her in the face. Not only cruel, but cruel and incompetent. A vicious idiot. An inept cunt is the person that murdered her. Not only was an innocent woman murdered, that will forever be slandered as paranoid schizophrenic. And I don't care what you say. That's fucking slander. She's not paranoid schizophrenic. That woman will forever be slandered as paranoid schizophrenic. An innocent woman who even after her death is still being slandered. Met her end at the hands of a worthless, incompetent, dumb, racist piece of shit with no clue or understanding of history. And that idiotic piece of shit is protected from on high by an alchemical society. I bet you any money that piece of shit is protected from on high. And prison ain't about to do shit either. They got neo-Nazis in prison. You might be restricted in prison, but a lot of criminals in there, they can easily gain power if you know how to do it. You can gain power in prison. It's not difficult. It's not difficult, especially for somebody who's already protected, clearly protected by very, very powerful people. This is whiteness, but it's also more than just whiteness. It's more than just maleness. He's protected from on high. There is no other explanation for this. And I believe that the body camera was released. I believe that the body cam footage was released because once they saw the cruelty that was inflicted on Sonya Massey, this innocent black woman at the hands of a psychotic white man, once they saw that, people would make their own minds to center it around race rather than ask what's really going on. That's why I believe the body cam footage was released to the public. Now, again, I think in the interest of public safety, they do have to release these things. But I think the ulterior motive is they released it so that they could spark a race war. And they wanted to spark a race war to take attention away from the targeting. That's what I believe is going on. Okay? Because a lot of what this poor woman went through, what Sonya Massey went through before she was killed, I've been through myself. I've had people breaking into my house. I haven't called the police over it, but I have brought it to my landlords. I brought it to my landlord several times before I brought it to police. And they lied in my fucking face. I've had evidence upon evidence of harassment, of stalking, of smear campaigns. And what did they do when they saw the evidence? They ignored it and lie. You know, sometimes they would even lie and say that the evidence isn't there. That's TI shit. That is TI shit. There's just no way. There's absolutely no way she wasn't. And even now in her death, she's still not allowed respect. Even in her death, she still wasn't allowed respect. So, yeah, this shit just doesn't make any, like, I don't understand how people are not looking more deeply into this. But then again, I do understand. Once you see somebody being shot in the face, Once you see somebody being shot in the face, once your soul has been ripped open like that, it's easy for Big Brother to spin an angle and say, this is just a simple race war. It's just police versus the public. No. The police belong to more powerful people than themselves, more powerful people than even the government. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. And yes, it is racially charged, but not in the way that you think. It's racially charged, but not in the way that you think. This is a lot more complex and a lot more intricate than just some underqualified white man versus a black woman who wasn't harming anybody. It's a lot more complicated than that. There is so much corruption within power structures. And it's those same power structures that have people crying Black Lives Matter when TIs are right there. The majority of them, apparently, according to Dr. Catherine Horton, the majority of them are black. Wake up. Wake the fuck up. Now I'm going to get into Ozzy Omoluabi's point. I believe they put this torture device into her head as well. What torture device in her head? When the video was shown, she wasn't even angry. She was clearly uncomfortable because she knew that these police officers were up to no good. But what device would they have put in her head? And like literally neither the police nor her family have ever talked about her being violent, anything like that. And when it comes to the paranoid schizophrenic thing, they're vague on the details. They're vague on the diagnosis, like they always fucking are with TIs. They like to intimate that you're hearing voices. They like to intimate these things, but they don't like to be specific. Because if they're specific, it basically leaves too many questions. So they keep it vague. Do you understand? We don't know the ins and outs of Sonya Massey's illness. Most of us TIs were categorized as having mental health issues. Yeah. It's not just to, just to engage in a smear campaign against us. That's not the only reason. The other reason is if you are seen to have a mental health disorder that could render you incompetent or unable to actually give a reliable testimony, they can throw it out. They can throw it out as frivolous, like they did with those people who accused Jay-Z and Beyonce of trafficking, and Black Cube, fucking intelligence, a private intelligence agency, Black Cube, they were accused of trafficking as well. But the judge immediately threw the case out as frivolous. Lacking evidence. It's lacking evidence, yet it made it all the way to court. Help me here. And and also Catherine Horton, Dr. Catherine Horton, wrote to MI5. MI5 wrote it off as frivolous. How did we get here? How did we get to frivolous? How are you answering multiple letters from this woman and you're turning around to telling her that her shit is frivolous? Get the fuck out of here. You are guilty as fuck. They know exactly what they're doing. When you have a paranoid schizophrenic diagnosis and you start making accusations and those accusations reach court, it's so that these people can turn around and say it's frivolous and it's baseless. That's how they set that up. That's how they set that up. That's why Sonya Massey was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic. She wasn't no fucking paranoid schizophrenic. You can see from the video she wasn't paranoid schizophrenic. Like, were there people in the room, other people in the room that we couldn't see? No. When you're a paranoid schizophrenic, you can barely string two sentences together. And it's not because you're stupid. It's because your mind is completely overwhelmed. You're completely overwhelmed. Your senses are completely overwhelmed. There's all kinds of people talking to you. And they're like when you're paranoid schizophrenic, you can't even look people in the face 9 times out of 10. Because your eyes are seeing all kinds of different things around you. There are different voices talking to you. Even when the psychosis is synthesized. You can see it. You can see when there are different voices talking to the person. You couldn't see any of that in Sonya. You couldn't see any of that in Sonya. I don't fucking talk to me about psychosis being part of paranoid schizophrenia. Don't tell me that shit. Psychosis is psychosis. Paranoid schizophrenia is paranoid schizophrenia. She didn't have no fucking schizophrenia. Shut up. She didn't have schizophrenia. Don't go there. Don't go there with me. But that's what they do. They label you as paranoid schizophrenic, meaning your version of reality can't be trusted even with fucking evidence. They know exactly what they're doing. And check it. Look at this. I was wearing all green today. It was just pure coincidence that I was wearing green. Look at this. Look at this. Guess who else is wearing green? Yes, Stella. Yes. She's wearing green too. Imagine us being so aligned. I joke. I jest. Yeah. She's wearing green too. I didn't even know. Oh. And she's experienced much of the same thing. Ella T. Gorgia has experienced much of the same thing. I'm going to read some of this now. Miss Gorgia has been harassed for over 2 years, and things have escalated to the point. This is back in 2020. So again, she's been harassed for almost 6 years, because this is the date here, November 18th, 2020. So Ms. Gorgia has been harassed for over 2 years, and things have escalated to the point that the New York District Attorney's Office has opened an investigation. This is a story of failed systems. Failure of the NYPD to take basic complaint reports, check. Failure of Mount Sinai, that's in New York, to preserve evidence, check. That's exactly what they did with Lisa T.I.'s evidence. They failed to preserve it. They didn't even look into her phone when her body was found. If they looked into her phone, they would have seen everything that was being done to her. They did the same shit to Lisa T.I. Failure of the NAACP New York national offices to serve as advocates. Failure of the New York Human Rights Commission to protect her basic human rights. And failure of Estee Lauder companies on numerous levels. So she had the support of the New York District Attorney at that time. And yeah. The second Estee Lauder companies were reported by Ella Gorgia. The second she reported them, they targeted her. But again, it doesn't have to be just you pissing off a powerful person. With me, I've been targeted since birth. I'm convinced that I've been targeted since birth. And I'm convinced that not only have I been targeted, my family's been targeted too. Because MI5 had black families watched when they came over on Windrush. This is a story that goes back way before I was born, way before me, way before Sonya Massey, who's younger than me, by the way. She was born in, yeah. She's like about, what, 3 years younger than me when she died? This is a story that goes back before me, before Sonya Massey, before Ella Gorgia. MI5, in the UK at least, were talking about spying on black families. Didn't they have something similar going on with the FBI in America? After they just ended apartheid in America? Weren't FBI doing the same thing under the guise of fighting communism? That's the same thing MI5 did here. Remember Olive Morris, who died of cancer mysteriously at a young age? I've interviewed Barry Trower. I don't know where that footage is. I'm really kind of panicking because I hope it's not lost. I interviewed Barry Trower, and he talked about how this microwave emissions thing against people had been going on for decades. There's a video of him on my page that talks about him using microwave weapons against Northern Irish so-called terrorists, Northern Irish groups. There's no way they're going to use that on the Northern Irish, and they're not going to use it on black people. This story is something that's been going on for decades, at least. At least. So it's not always, you know, you pissing off a powerful person that does this, even though that's Ella's story. It's not always, you know, somebody being chosen at random, which was most likely Sonya Massey's story. It's not, you know, it's not always happening since birth, which is most likely my story. Doesn't always happen like that. You know, the truth of the matter is you've got a lot of, well, not a lot of powerful people, but you've got a small group of very powerful, very fucking bored people who are constantly at war with the public. And they always win because they're always at war. And when you're always at war, you're always prepared. This is an energetic war. It's spiritual war. It is a spiritual war because it's an emotional war. It's a war of your psyche. And they're winning. The people in power are winning. And they're winning because people like to aestheticize things in order to feel safe. And to borrow a quote from a YouTuber called Cheyenne Lynn, and to change the phrasing a bit, you can't aesthetize the truth. You can't turn the truth into an aesthetic, not the whole truth. You can't make an aesthetic out of it. You can make an aesthetic out of part of the truth, which is why Sonya Massey is attached to Black Lives Matter. Because even in the face of evidential targeting, many of us still have my doubts. I even have my doubts as somebody who's a TI. You can't aesthetize the truth, but you can aesthetize a part of it and use it to create lies. Black Lives Matter. It's being used as a smokescreen. Believe it or not, it's being used as a smokescreen to hide how bad things really are and how bad governmental corruption really is and how out of control our chemical societies have actually gotten. And on top of that, all of this is happening at a time where Axis powers are threatening to take over. There's a huge transition of power right now. And that's one of the only reasons why these traffickers like P. Diddy and Drake and all that are being revealed, by the way. The only reason they're being revealed is that when you're dealing with a hierarchy of criminals, you start with the lowest criminals first. And like I said, in many organizations, our chemical hierarchies, political hierarchies, black people are down here. White folks are up here. So that's what we're dealing with. That's exactly what we're dealing with. And that's why the Sonya Masses of the world continue to be killed. That's why. And that's why the Lisa T.I.s of the world continue to be murdered. That's why the Daniel Bowdens of the world continue to be murdered. That's why the David Scott Bakers of the world continue to be murdered. David Scott Baker, who was, he was queer. That's why these people continue to be murdered, is because people need a signifier. Black Lives Matter is a signifier. All lives matter is a signifier. They're signifiers. They're part of the truth. They're not the whole truth. Because the whole truth is not something that you can make into an aesthetic. And if you can't make it into an aesthetic, you can't capitalize off it. I can make this into an aesthetic because it's part of the truth. But it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is something that we will never be ready for. And that's why cases like Sonya Massey will continue to happen. They will continue. We're not serious. It's like the fucking stupid perp that I met at the Tesco petrol station. Oh, serious. Shut up. Human beings are not serious. And as long as we're not serious, we're going to continue to have our chemical societies fucking yo-yo us about, hanging on to their power. This will continue. And now before I go, oh, green book, by the way, check it. Hang on. Green book. Before I go, I'm going to read another biblical quote, and I want you guys to hear it. Wait on the Lord and be of good courage. Wait, I say, on the Lord. My gran used to love that biblical quote. She used to quote it to me all the time. And I really, really hope, my fellow TIs, that you get comfort. If not from that quote, then from the knowledge that you are indeed on the right side of history. Let that warm you. Let that strengthen you. You're on the side of truth. You're on the side of something that can never be destroyed. No matter how hard the liars of this world try. If you made it this far in the video, please let me know how you're doing. And special shout out to Ozzy Omoluwabi for joining me. And I'm going to leave you with his words. Keep going on, never give up. Your voice matters. Peace and blessings. Bye-bye.